Welcome, everybody, to our very first episode of Wisdom Work with Christa and Christy. I'm Christy McCaffrey, joined by my co-host, Christa Manti, and we are so excited to be here with you today. We can't even really put it into words how excited we are. I think I speak for both of us when I say that. Right,
hmm
Christa?
Oh, yeah.
Krista and I, just to give everybody a little bit of backstory about us, we have been friends for a very long time, grew up in the same area, um, and didn't really connect until like our early 20s, I'd say.
hmm
And we had a mutual friend who said, "You two need to spend a little more time together. You're totally on the same page." So we started having coffee dates. We would go to Starbucks and we just sit there, and she'd tell me about what she was doing with her work, and I would tell her the same. And it kind of, our conversations just organically grew into this ongoing conversation about what inspired us and what our goals were, what our dreams were. And they always were very much aligned, even though we both were doing two different types of work. Krista was in the nutrition field. At the time, I was just starting my nonprofit, Project Scleroderma. But I think that the main thing that we connected on was the fact that we wanted to create more light in the world. We wanted to help people. We wanted to learn as much ourselves about how we could better ourselves and then spring that forward to other people. So the conversation really over the years, Krista moved to the other side of the country where she's been for a while now, but we've stayed in touch, and always our conversations leave us both just lit up. And, you know, we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but usually the conversation is about the work that we're both doing on ourselves and all that we're learning and the work that we're doing and how we're applying that wisdom in our personal lives, our professional lives. And we're always still talking about that common theme of wanting to spring that forward. And recently, it just became like a light bulb moment for us. Krista had me on a project that she was doing, and I was interviewed, and then I had her on my podcast, Be the Good, and I interviewed her. And afterwards, we both were like, why aren't we doing this more? Right? Because we just feel like, A, we're lit up after every conversation, but also that it just felt like, why are we not sharing this with other people? Now's the time to like open things up and have other people join this conversation, because we personally have learned so much on our own journeys of doing this inner work that is ultimately guiding us on our own paths. And we feel that everybody has this same capacity within them to tap into their own inner wisdom if you're willing to do the work. Miraculous things can shift and open up in your life, and we both are really living proof of that. And it's not just unique to us. This is something that all of us have the possibility, the capability, the talent, and the opportunity to really look within and shift and grow and evolve. And we want to do that together as a community, right?
Beautiful, beautifully said. Oh my gosh. It's so true. And I think now more than ever, coming out of a pandemic, talking about a life that we are dreaming about, that we have always dreamed about, that is within us, and going after it, like really trying to live authentically and be who we were meant to be. And I think having this conversation live and on air and having a community support you in this growth and in this delving deeper within yourself is so valuable. And having just wisdom being shared among others allows it to further flourish. And that's really what I feel so grateful and honored to be able to do with you, my spiritual running buddy, and to our budding community. So we are so thrilled and really honored to be walking on this path together.
Yes, absolutely. And I think anybody who's heard me talk about us, it might be sick of hearing me use the term spiritual running buddy, but that is what I've always coined our relationship as. And to explain that, it really means that, like, we've done for each other what we're hoping to do for this community, which is
Mm-hmm.
show up and listen, and show up with
Yes.
an open mind and an open heart, and hear what the other person is going through on their own journey. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes all you need is that sounding board. Sometimes you also need, some advice, some tips, some guidance. And that as spiritual running buddies, we've been that for each other. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be a really wonderful space for everyone and anyone to come and open up, be heard, or maybe even just listen.
Mm-hmm.
We do plan to open up to questions, and we want this to feel like a community experience. So this isn't just Christa and I going on and on about ourselves and our own lives. We're hoping that in sharing our experiences and our thoughts and the wisdom that we've acquired, that it will help spark a greater conversation. That's really what this is meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christa, why don't you start us off, and we'll talk about what our conversation is going to be about today.
Love it. Thank you. So I don't know about you, but in the circles that I'm in, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, what I'm hearing from other people around this post-pandemic new earth, it's really about being honest, like getting really honest, being really clear with what you're desiring, with what you want your life to look like, and having the courage to step up to it and to receive it, because I believe that every one of us has this little whisper, and maybe it's a louder voice for some, but this intuition inside of us is guiding us in every step of our lives. And with a year plus of being in lockdown and being in, um, it could be viewed as like a more of a meditation year, or it could be viewed, a lot of people had a lot of different experiences with this pandemic. And I just think with ushering in this new earth, we're doing this collectively. So let's be really intentional and let's be really purposeful about what we're calling in. And I think that's really important for all of us to do our own work in that sense, and to think through what were things you were doing in the pre-pandemic world that you weren't really a fan of and that wasn't serving you maybe, but you felt bad or you felt like you should. And what I'm seeing is this shift in, I don't want to do those things anymore. I want to do what I want to do, and not in a selfish way, but in a really honest and um, serving the highest good kind of way. So I think that's what this conversation can really be about today, is stepping out into the world again, reintegrating into this earth. And how do we want to do that? How do we want to step into our new lives in an intentional and purposeful way and in a meaningful way? Because with that comes so many emotions, right? Like so much grief. Any transition has grief, excitement, hope, yearning, missing the past, missing the comfort. There's so much that we can pull from this rich experience that we've all collectively gone through the last year, and just honoring all of the things that we've experienced, all the feelings we felt, all of the sadness, all of the collective grief, I think has really come up to the surface. And being okay with that, like being okay with the darkness and being okay with not the light, because we've experienced really, really dark times as a whole. And I think that's a beautiful shared experience. Like the trauma connects all of us. And going forward, how do we want to heal? And how is there, um, who can support you in your healing? So I
Right.
think that's a good topic for today, don't you think?
I love it. I think it's the best way to start this all off, because we're diving in deep right away. And that's
Yeah, why
exactly where
not?
everybody get used to it. I do think this is a great place for us to start, just dive in and to let our listeners know this is where we're headed. Buckle up. Like we get really real on this. But it's going to be full of all sorts of really thought-provoking conversation, and things that will leave you with the ability to leave the conversation and do your own, you know, analysis of everything that we talked about and see how it fits for you. And I like that you said, you know, that we need to really acknowledge what happened and we need to kind of sit with it, because I think some of our initial reactions when you're coming out of trauma or something that was really hard to get through, our initial reaction is to just kind of like almost forget about it and move forward, right? And so we're like push it behind us and move forward. But if there's anything that I've learned in grief, in particular, I lost my mom when I was 24 years old. And I've been working through that grief for the past over 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing I've learned is that you have to feel it in order to move forward, or you have to feel it to heal it, you
That's
know?
right.
If you're going to heal and you're going to move forward from a traumatic experience in your life or a loss of any kind, you have to feel it and you have to do the work
Mm-hmm.
um, to kind of move forward. So I love this topic because I think that, like you said, we're all collectively in the same exact spot, which is very unique in and of itself,
Right.
right?
Right.
That everybody feels differently about it and everybody has experienced it in their own way, but we're all still at the same spot at the same time, having to make a decision of how we're going to proceed forward.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think we should get into that, just like you were talking about. Like, what is it that, you know, I'll ask you, you know, what do you feel like prior to the pandemic, or things that maybe you'd like to leave behind? What did you learn through the pandemic that you'd like to
Mm.
move forward with?
Yep.
You know, what's your personal take on that?
Oh boy. I think those are great questions. They're really good journal prompts because there's a lot to say about it. And coming from personally an Italian American family, oldest child of three girls, Catholic upbringing, I mean, there was a lot of cultural as well as familial pressure on being a good girl, being a peacemaker, being the example. And these narratives have been uh, unconsciously running in the background of my life up until very recently, until I became aware of them. And there are a lot of experiences that I was acting on in my life and making decisions based on thinking I should. So that was a big aha for me when I started learning every time I'm acting from a place of should, it's not from an authentic place. It's from more of a cerebral, mental thing as opposed to a heart-centered, soul-filled decision. So I got really clear on that and still working on it, obviously. All of this that we'll be talking about is a constant work in progress, as you know. So what comes up for me around this post-pandemic life is boundaries. And I know that's like a hot topic right now, especially everything I'm seeing, I'm reading books on it, I'm just learning how to create healthy boundaries because it's a real interesting way to look at how you set up your energetic life. So for me, I was seeping energy out into different areas of my life that I didn't really want to give it to, but it was because I felt like I should or I felt like I had to. And I think this is very true for a lot of people that I'm seeing waking up to this like radical awakening. I'm seeing this like across the board, which is very exciting. But like I said, with that comes so many different emotions and so much work to be done. And it's very vulnerable because for me, at least, finding my voice, finding the courage to speak up about what I want or to leave conversations that I know are not going in a place I want them to go, or figuring out which people I want to surround myself in life and kind of distance from others that I may have felt like I should be around more, or, all of these things are really hard. They're really hard things to change. And that's why I think it's so valuable that we have these conversations in public and outside of our coffee place, because a lot of people are going through this and I want to normalize it. I want to make sure that other people that are feeling this call to change their lifestyle, to change their behaviors, to stand up for themselves in a kind and respectful and creative way without offending others. Because the other thing I've learned is that this has all of this work that we're doing and that I'm doing, it has nothing to do with anybody else. Like all of the people, all of the players in my life are just actors and actresses in my movie that I'm playing, and it's all for my greatest good is my belief, and that they're here to help me work out my stuff and heal me essentially, and to help me evolve to the next level of being. And so I have learned to use triggers in a positive way, even though they're very painful, and to look at this, um, when certain people may trigger me, and anger arises or rage arises, to use that as a way of looking deeper within myself. Like, what is this trying to teach me? And it's not about the person, because it's about the feeling that has been evoked in me. That's a really positive thing, because it's helping me to utilize all of those negative emotions in order to heal something underneath it. So for me, I think the new earth, and to come out of it with more of a um, grace and respect and clear listening and a deep intuitive way of being is my intention, and to live an authentic and intentional, purposeful, meaningful life.
So I love that you talk about that concept of this being a movie, your life, and that these people in it are all players in that movie, because I think that we can all often get caught up, especially when we're feeling a negative way. We get caught up in the idea that there's someone else to blame for it,
Mm-hmm.
or and it is, you're triggered by the way people act. You're triggered by the way that things unfold in your life, but ultimately that's what this work is all about. That's what the
Mm-hmm.
inner wisdom work journey is all about. It's about taking responsibility for the fact that the work is yours to do.
Right.
If you want to grow, evolve, live a more meaningful, happy, purposeful life, that choice is yours.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you want that, then it means, checking yourself and being responsible for the fact that this is your work to do. And look at all these people in this beautiful light. Like you're saying, like if you can switch your perception of how those people are part of your story in a good way, even though they may trigger you in a negative way, they're here to teach you. And what they're
Right.
saying or doing is triggering you for a reason. If you're
Mm-hmm.
paying attention, it's going to guide you through the work to a happier place, to release the pain that you maybe have been holding on to for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would say coming into the pandemic, I'll just set it up for you in the fact that I have been home with my 3 children for the better part of the past 8 years. I run my nonprofit from home around them, and I do lots of other things because I can't help myself but do a lot of stuff at once. You'll learn that about me in these conversations. I am passion driven to the fullest. And when I have an idea and it sparks, I have a hard time not following it. But that's kind of part of what I learned in this process of the lockdown, was that I'm always someone that was leaning forward, in
Mm-hmm.
forward motion. Like, what can I do next? How can I express myself in the next project? Like
Mm-hmm.
as a creative driven person, you're always wanting to creatively express yourself some way. That's something I've learned about myself on the whole, is that I do need creative outlets, and I'm always searching for a way to do that. But it doesn't mean that I have to throw myself into 20 things at once. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been home with the kids, and that has been my life. I'm so happy to be here with them. I'm blessed that I've been here with them all along. I have an almost 8-year-old son, a 6-year-old daughter, and an almost 4-year-old son is my littlest. So I've been here for like everything, and we are together 24/7. And there's so much good about that. There's so much challenge and struggle
Yeah.
in that too, especially when you're someone who has a lot of ambition and has a lot of dreams and goals and wants to change the world all by myself. And thinks that I can. I think that I can. But, I think for me, so heading into the pandemic, in my mind, I was about to have all three of my kids this past school year were going to be in school in some capacity. Like my youngest was going to be starting preschool, and I have a first grader and a kindergartner. Like it was finally like that light at the end of the tunnel moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not that I didn't enjoy being home, and I'm grateful for it, and I wasn't running away from it, but I felt like I had earned this moment of like, oh, I can finally do my work without 10,000 things going on around me while I'm trying to get it done. So when the pandemic hit, I got hit hard emotionally in that way of like, the rug just got pulled out from underneath me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now I do see it as the universe was saying, like, you've got something to learn here. And I think that the lesson that I needed to learn was to really be in it, slow down, be present, um, kind of take the distractions out of the situation and honor the fact that you're supposed to be here with your kids right now and that that's a
Mm.
beautiful thing. This stuff is all going to happen. Like you're going to get to this career you're trying to work so hard on. You're going to get there. But like right now, you need to just work on being more present, work on, just having gratitude for the space you're in. So that's what I really tried to work hard on. Even being home with the kids for the past 8 years, I left working in a hair salon when I made the career switch to be running my nonprofit, Project Scleroderma. And I knew that that meant it was going to be chaotic running everything around my kids, but it also meant that I had this unique opportunity to not be around other adults in a way where my energy always felt like it was being zapped, you
Mm.
know, just by so many personalities were always around in a hair salon and your clients, and I'm a very empathetic person. So like I feel everybody's energy and I absorb everybody's energy. It was just kind of nice to know that I was going to have this space where I was really just like able to work on myself. And so I did make a commitment like a year or so into being home with the kids that this was going to be like my incubator period where
I
I was,
remember you saying this to
remember that?
me. Yes.
Where I just made a commitment where I'm like, if you're going to be by yourself this much, I mean, clearly I was never alone. Clear about that. I was never alone. But I wasn't having to deal with those like grown-up conversations or whatever, other personalities. I was able to just really focus on how can I do some serious inner work here.
Mm.
And so I've been working on that through this whole time that I've been home with them. I've gone through many different things in all of my relationships, friends, family, my career, like just noticing those things, like you said, the shoulds and how my energy, I love how you said, was seeping out of you in places you didn't necessarily want it to go. That like is the nail on the head for me too. That's what was happening. Like I
Mm-hmm.
felt I was a people pleaser my whole life, even
Mm-hmm.
though I'm a very individual type of person who's gonna do what I want no matter what. And
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
been that way from what I'm told my whole life. Um, I also still am a very, like I said, empathetic person. So I am always still worried about like, how is what I'm doing affecting other people? Or am I doing enough for the people in my life? Am I giving enough, And then when the kids come into the fold, you realize like, oh, I only have so much to give to anybody else
Mm-hmm.
outside of myself, my husband, and my kids. And that took a lot of shifting for me. I had a lot of dancing and rearranging that I had to do that was very painful because it meant, just like you said, creating boundaries that were very uncomfortable to create.
Mm.
Um, but that being said, I've worked through a lot of that over the past few years. And so in the pandemic, just as I thought I was about to like spread my wings and fly, the universe said, nope, not quite yet. We're not done yet, on this thing. You're still in that hard work and you got to stay here because there's something you still have to learn. So
Mm.
for me, the greatest lesson that I learned, I think, was don't be in such a rush. Everything doesn't have to happen yesterday in terms of like your dreams, your goals, your aspirations. Like it will happen. But the number one thing that you have to focus on in your life, if you're going to look back on at the end of your life and appreciate and know that you experienced it to the fullest, is being present.
Mm.
If you're not present on a moment to moment basis, uh, you're not going to have that fullness, that richness to look back on. And
Mm.
that was the greatest nugget for me in that process. And now coming out of it, I'm really grateful that even in the way that I speak, I'm at a slower, calmer place. Like I get excited about stuff. That's just how I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not so eager to like move forward at the speed of light. Like I'm realizing, like, savor it, be here.
Mm.
Everything's going to unfold as it should, in its own time. And what's the rush? Like, enjoy
Mm.
your life, enjoy these babies while they're still in your house, and before no one's here next year, and I'm going to be like, oh, okay, quiet. Like that's probably going to be a major adjustment for me, even though I've been looking forward to it.
Totally.
So my motto for this year post pandemic has been, like, as we started to come out of it, is align and allow.
Oh, I love that.
Right? To focus on how can I align within and keep this conversation with my inner guidance strong, and then am I willing to get out of the way and allow it?
Mm.
Allow whatever is meant for me to. And that's the thing, I think sometimes in all the pushing and the forcing of things to move forward, you're missing a lot in the fact that you're not allowing. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
more that could probably come through, opportunities, experiences, connections with people that could happen if your energy wasn't so stuck and focused on this, like, I gotta get it done and I gotta get more done and I gotta do. I mean, that's part of our culture, unfortunately, is that we view success as I work harder than you. I don't
Right.
sleep and I'm proud of it. And
Mm-hmm.
but I'm making money. So, like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's something I'm trying to notice, in and of myself, and in my own lane, is like, all of that's great. It's great to aspire to be successful, to have abundance. Yes, that's wonderful. But are we defining ourselves by this constant motion? And is it
Exactly.
healthy? I don't think it is. I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning that to bring my fullest self to the table and to be of the greatest impact that I want to be, I have to rest. I have to take care of
Mm.
myself. I have to fill up my cup. And it's that whole, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And
Yeah.
I think we're going to probably talk a lot about that in our conversations, just as
Mm-hmm.
mothers and as entrepreneurs, as driven females who have a lot that we want to accomplish. Um,
Yes.
we also have to check ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's males, females, whoever you are.
Right.
You know, we can just all get very caught up in defining success as constant motion. And maybe we can talk, we're definitely going to dive more into that, I think, on another
For
episode.
sure.
But, what do we think? I like that you had posed these questions, when we first talked about this, about like, what do you want to say yes to more? What do you want to say
Mm-hmm.
no to more as you go forward? And how do we want to show up more authentically in this new earth that's being ushered in? This gift,
Yes.
really, that's being given to us, a fresh start. Like,
Right.
how do you want to show up, and what do you want to say yes to, and what do you want to say no to?
Yeah. I love so much of what you said. Oh my gosh. So one of the things that really hit me was the slowing down, and to even slow down the speech, choose the words really wisely, because words make worlds. And I've noticed how much my language has changed, and how, the self-deprecating humor is kind of going towards the wayside. Like I'm not even saying negative things about myself in jest anymore. Like I want this like beautiful respect for me, just as I would want that for my son, Damon, who's 5. And to teach him the way that we talk about ourselves is the way we would talk about somebody that we really love and admire. And you saying about this year being your time to work on you, and to, I remember you saying this. I remember calling you probably a year ago, right as the pandemic had started, because I felt that like the suffocation too, around like, I thought this was my year too, like he was going to start preschool and I could do a lot more work. And luckily he did, so I had 3 days. But that was more around just trying to get back to baseline after 3 years of not sleeping, and the breastfeeding and all the new mom stuff. I was really struggling postpartum. So I love when you said, because I remember calling you being like, Chris, how do you do this with 3 kids? Like, I can barely hang on with one to do like all the work too, and all of, your own personal wisdom work, plus the work you want to do in the world, plus a relationship that takes work, marriage and a partnership relationship, plus a parenting relationship that's conscious and that you're not losing your mind over little things. And I just value you and our friendship so much, and that you really hold me to what I want to be, and the highest level for myself first, but then also for my family, my friends, the people in my life that I want to show up fully to. And exactly what you're saying, this cultural influence of doing more in less time and all this stuff, I just feel like coming out of this pandemic, it is going to be toppled. It's going to be flipped upside down. And what we're learning, or what I'm learning, is that the truest, most valuable gift that you could ever give someone is your true presence, is just showing up clear, not charged emotionally, doing the hard work that it takes to show up in your full potential, and just being a vessel, and just being just being just being for your spouse, just being for your children, just being in work. And from that place, allowing, like you said, I love that, align and allow, because allowing for that infinite creativity to come through you. And like you said, in all divine timing, it's not on our timeline. And if it was, it probably would not come out as nicely as it does when we wait and when we're patient. So I just love all of those things that you said. So thank you so much for bringing all of that to the table.
Absolutely. I'm glad we're having this conversation because as we're talking and as you're sharing and I'm hearing what I'm saying, that there's so many people who can relate to this right now. I mean,
Completely.
I'm almost like, who couldn't relate to this right now? Like you don't have to be a parent, you don't have to be a woman, you don't like you
No.
can just relate to the fact that so much has shifted, but also, and that we have to deal with that, but also this topic of aligning and allowing, and where are we putting our energy?
Mm,
Like I think for me going forward, and when we talk about like how can I show up the most authentically,
mm-hmm.
for me it's about how am I showing up with my energy, and it's really
Right.
similar to what you just said. Like
Right.
how can I be a gift of just my presence? Like how can my presence be a gift? And like for instance, we went out with a bunch of friends recently, and I beforehand said to myself, like, I'm always kind of asking now, like, guide me, to that which is of the greatest good for all. That's what I'm
Mm,
asking my guides, my angels that I feel like are around me and who help me, my mom especially.
mm,
How can you guide me to that which is of the highest good for all? So what I felt going into this group setting was just show up as authentically as you can and as open as you can.
mm,
And I got there and had the greatest time. And like afterwards, as I was like looking over the night, I'm like, I had some really great conversations. These were people I hadn't seen in a really long time. And I had really great like honest, open conversations about just like, how are you? Like what's going on? How are you feeling? I think there was this energy too of like, because nobody had seen each other in a long time, but especially like since no one was able to see anybody for like the
right.
past year, you
Mm-hmm.
really truly cared to know, like, what have you been up to? Or how are you feeling?
Yes.
Or like, I mean, I was even having conversations about like, what are your goals? What are you looking forward to? And I feel like I was able to show up fully and be present in that moment in a way that I would not have been able to prior to the pandemic.
Mm,
And I felt that other people were showing up in that way too. So I do think that something has shifted in all of us. And again, we've already said this, but we have a unique opportunity right now to uh, decide, to be more present? Do we want to
Mhm.
show up more authentically in all of our relationships? Because now's the time to start doing it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we've also realized, like, let's not waste a second of our time in not being authentic after
Mhm.
what we've all just gone through, you
Exactly.
know?
I
Like,
totally agree. Yeah.
it's now is the time, if you get to have a reset, you know, what is really most important to you? What are your goals going forward? What are
Mhm.
your dreams? Do they align? Maybe even stop and ask yourself, like, do all these things that I want or dream of, do they even align with like my truest self? Maybe we can take a beat and like ask yourself truthfully, quietly, in meditation or just journaling. I love to journal.
Mhm.
Give yourself some prompts of like, what do I really want? One of my favorite meditations um, is exactly that. You sit there and you ask yourself silently, what do I want? What
Mm.
do I want? Over and over again. And you're not, you shouldn't be looking for this like long, crazy answer. Like, it actually in time will just be like something that kind of gets downloaded into you, like a little
Mhm.
nugget of, maybe you'll uncover something that you didn't even know you wanted, needed, you know?
Right.
Just like
And I
taking the time.
also, yeah, with what you just said, it's for me because I have all this ambition and I want everything to be the way in my mind, the way it should be at the end. Knowing what I need in the moment is really simple typically. It's like I need a hug, or I need a glass of water, or I need to just meditate. Like I need to just be in quiet.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be this big elaborate thing around like I want to live somewhere, special, or I want to be in this beautiful home. Like it really could be I need to just take a deep breath. I need to exhale fully and inhale fully. Like I've been going nonstop and I just want to like take a moment. So I
Totally.
love that reminder.
I'm glad that you added that, because I think that also when we talk about like creating the life that we want, we've all been hearing that language for so many years of manifesting your dreams and
Mhm.
stepping into abundance, and in your mind you go straight towards the biggest things you could ever think of.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
not it's not that you shouldn't want those things or aim for those goals. They're great, but
Mhm.
I think we get caught up in becoming fixated with those end results, that
Mhm.
we miss the opportunity, like you said, to just check in and say, but what are these smaller things that I need and want in the moment, in the now,
Mhm.
that could, exponentially change your experience on your day-to-day life,
That's right.
just
Because
checking.
I think when you're utilizing those little moments of what do I need and giving yourself what you actually need in that moment, you're developing a trust within yourself. You're developing that intuition. You're developing that muscle of let me ask within and listen for the answer and then give it to you. Like give it to
Right.
myself. Whether it's food, whether it's an outfit, whether it's like a hairstyle, whether it's shoes to wear, like what do I feel like eating right now? What do I feel like wearing right now? And listen to the feeling in what's coming out of you and what's coming from within you, because I think that's the name of the game. I mean, if you can develop that trust that you will never leave you and you have to live in this body, let's make friends, then that's such a beautiful relationship and a priceless gift that you can give yourself, and to develop that dance within you. And anytime you want something or anytime you're desiring something, like give it, go for it. And that's what I'm talking about around the authenticity, because whenever I felt guilty or like I felt like I should do something, I knew I was out of alignment because I was thinking what other people would think of me as opposed to what I think of me. And to not have to explain myself, not have to justify myself, but just do it and just be clear and be transparent and be kind and tactful, but say what I mean. And that has been a really difficult journey, but a really important one for me. And I think that's another level and layer of trust that my body is starting to um, I'll say that I'm staying more in my body as opposed to uh, forsaking my body and numbing out, or even giving someone else power over what I truly desire. There's just so many layers to it, and I think that coming out of a pandemic, like what we're saying, thinking about where we are letting it seep and like letting the energy out into these different avenues that we may not want it to go, just calling it back and saying, you know what, I think it is important for me to say no to this. And we have the ability to make it creative and kind. We don't have to be offensive, or, like I said, it's never about anybody else. It's more about like, I really feel like having an introverted night tonight, or I really don't want to, I told my husband and my son that we'd have a family night, like create it so it's all about you. And I think what we're finding too is that people really value the no. And no is a really spiritual word, because when you say the yes, they know you mean it. And that's a really beautiful way to start trusting in an external environment where you're saying like, okay, I said yes, and I do want to show up fully, and I want to be here authentically, and I can't wait to engage with these people, as opposed to like, I feel like I should be here, but I really want to
Totally.
be in bed.
Totally. And just being honest first with yourself, right? Like
Yes,
first with yourself. And I think that I love everything that you just said, because it speaks to this wisdom work. In my mind, what the work is really at the core is is creating a better, closer relationship to yourself, to
that's
your
right.
truest self. That is the ultimate goal, is to constantly be kind of removing the layers of all those shoulds and all those.
Mm,
I think for me, for years, part of that people pleaser mentality was I was always seeking advice outside of myself, right?
right.
I think most of us didn't know any other way but to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been really incredible in doing all of this inner work is building that muscle. I love to say that your intuition is like a muscle that you need to build. It's there and it wants to guide you. And that little voice inside you is always ready to talk.
Yep.
But you have to be willing to be quiet enough to listen. You have to be willing to do the work to build the muscle, and
Mm-hmm.
all of those things as you face your fears or push through those things that are challenging or create those boundaries that are hard to create, every time you do that, you're strengthening the muscle of your intuition, and you're
Mm-hmm.
strengthening your relationship to your true self.
Right.
And that is always what this work is going to come back to, is the value that comes from doing that work, and the relationship that you're creating within yourself, so that when you need an answer, you're asking first within. It does not mean that you can't ask somebody else for advice ever in life,
Right.
but it's creating that habit of coming inside first, trusting yourself deeply and what your intuition is telling you, and then maybe going to other people to get some other opinions, but
Mm-hmm.
not placing other people's opinions above your own.
That's right. I think that's such a good point, because I also think that when people are giving their advice, they have their own lens. They have their own stuff that's coming into their way of talking to you, and that's not always in your best interest. And it could be, I think everybody has the best of intentions, but it can be a lot of times unconscious. And with these different veils or like goggles that people have on, they're going to speak from that lens, and it may not pertain to your specific life, which is why you know yourself best. You have a reservoir of wisdom within you, and it's there wanting to serve. And I think we've just been very programmed by culture, and we look outside of ourselves first and foremost. We go to Google, we go to social media, we do a lot of other things externally to create so much noise, and it may not serve. It may sometimes, but it may not a lot of times. And I also think that sometimes when you have those people in your life that are doing the work also, that they can hear back what you're saying and where the energy is coming from, how you speak about something, and how your face lights up when you talk about a place or a person. Like that is empowering for you to have a sounding board, or to have those trusted advisors in your life, those key stakeholders that you trust to do and say and hold that space that you know you need to come to a big decision. And then that can also be really validating and saying like, yeah, you know what? It resonates with me with what you're saying because I've done the work, I've journaled, I've meditated, I know kind of where I want to go with this. And for you to just say that back to me, like that made a difference. So thank you.
Totally. And I think that validation is a really important word to bring into the conversation here, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that when we talk about us in the coffee shop so many years ago, what we were doing was validating each other, because we were talking about things that, quite frankly, no one around us was talking about. So essentially, we were two weirdos that got brought
Uh-huh.
and what's been wonderful is to see that over the years, this conversation on both coasts has evolved,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that we can talk a lot more freely about this. I think that's why now we've decided as we can have these
It
conversations
only
in
took 10
public.
years.
Yeah,
See,
it's
dreams
all
take time.
and it's all about the divine timing. And I think that that's what we should, really keep in focus as we talk, as we wrap up this conversation about the post-pandemic, this new earth, and this choice that we have going forward, is that remember that it is really important to do the work, and if you want to see these results and evolve and whatnot. But you can always, and you should always, try to find a tribe and a community
Mm-hmm.
and of like-minded people. And like I said, for you and I, that we weren't from the exact same social group. We kind of came out of our social groups to meet
Mm-hmm.
each other where we needed to be. And I've even seen many people just find like someone online that they connect with through a group, which we're hoping this will kind of facilitate that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That wisdom
Yep.
work, our number one goal really is to create a community where you feel like you can listen to these conversations and you're going to find that validation. We're going to find a spark of inspiration. We talked about this prior to recording, but we do understand and really respect the fact that our language is not necessarily going to resonate with everyone.
Right.
How we're talking about this topic may not even sit well with you, and that's okay. But
Mm-hmm.
we're hopeful that if anything, that it just sparks something in you to go find, you know, some other group or conversation that allows you to have, a more deeper, meaningful conversation, to feel supported and to do that inner work. Because at the end of the day, I really feel like if each of us focuses on our own stuff and really does the work, we really do the work, that is ultimately what's going to shift our world on the whole for the better in a powerful way.
Mm-hmm.
That, and that collectively, that work together is what makes the shift. But like, we
Mm-hmm.
have to really focus in on our own personal journey. And I know that for me, I'm really excited to hear what people have to say after hearing this
Yes.
first conversation. And we want people to know that we are totally open to questions, and we want you to reach out with even topics that you'd like to hear discussed. Eventually, we'll maybe even have some guests on the show that can really speak to the certain topics that we want to bring into the fold.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody, if you're listening and you have questions, or you want to just like give us your feedback on this conversation, or you want to suggest a topic, all you have to do is email us at thewisdomwork@gmail.com. And then you can also find Christa and I on our own social media accounts. I am at Christy McCaffrey. I should point out that it's spelled with an extra Y in the middle of my name. So it's at Christy, CHRISTYY, McCaffrey, McCaffrey. My real name was taken. I had to throw a Y in there. And Christa is at Christa Manti. That's at CHRISTAMANTEY, right?
Yep. That's
Okay.
right.
And both of us are totally open to communicating with all of you. We want to have this
Mm-hmm.
conversation. We plan to have, some conversations maybe live on Instagram in the future. We really are going to do a lot of things as this unfolds to try and build this community spirit. right?
Yes, yes. I love the spirit part of it. And I think what's in it for us as individuals is true emotional freedom and true, like, this idea of freedom and this like deep connection with yourself to feel unapologetically you, because you're so beautiful and you have so much to give, and the gifts that you have no one else does. So it's just so beautiful when you can get to that point of acceptance of who you truly are and all of the deep wisdom that you have from your specific journey on this path is just, it's so valuable. So we all need that, and we all believe in your deep wisdom. So we're excited to hear from you. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your how you're doing the work in your own life, and how that's really benefiting you, and when you're doing the courageous work. It's not easy, so we're here for you. We're doing it right along with you. We are certainly not experts at this.
That is
We
the truth.
are, yeah, we're just two girls on the journey with you.
That's right. And that is going to be the theme through all of this. Like, we are not trying to, uh, be the experts. We're not trying to shove any of this down anyone's throat. Like, this is just an open conversation.
Right.
And we're hoping to spark more conversation. And we're really excited to have all of you here. And we have
Yay.
so many topics already lined up, so much great stuff to get into on our next episode. So please come back and join us for more. Christa, I love you, and I'm so
I love
happy that
you.
we're here.
Yay.